Hello everyone. Today's topic is going to be a bit of a direct conversation about starseeds and the conspiracy obsession. And the reason why we need to have this conversation is because I just come across this a lot in the starseed community. It's this obsession with the conspiracy theories, and it's the absorption and immersion in these conspiracy theories. As a matter of fact, it actually is not serving us as much as we believe. And the reason for just the fact that it isn't actually serving us is, first of all, because it's keeping us in that lower reality existence. It's actually taking us far away from what we actually need to be doing on this planet. Because if you are, familiar with things like ascension, if you are familiar with things like raising of the consciousness, only one part of our process on the spiritual journey is the revelation of truth. Only one part is awakening. Only one part is taking off the veils. And although it is an important part, it is not all that there is, because there also has to be some form of correction, reparation, clearing, healing. There has to be a process onto the next stage, which is recovering those soul fractals, everything that was lost, everything that was maybe even taken away from you or stolen from you. There is that recovery and soul retrieval process, after which we start to finally embody our higher levels to the fullest. Whenever we start to work with our own higher levels, our own soul consciousness, our own divine self, that is when we finally realize that we are sovereign. That's when we take our power back. And we're not giving it away to these conspiracy, bad guys, or we're not externalizing our process. We're not relying on the other world, the external, to change into something in order for us to proceed on our paths. And that is one of the key messages that I wanted to make sure I delivered in this video. We do need to be the ones who take charge and who are in our power to create the world that we want to see, from within to without. So as within, so without. As above, so below. And that's where our free will matters. Our own sovereign power matters. We need to know what we are giving our power away to. And that is one big reason why staying too long in the conspiracy world can really harm our consciousness. Now, another thing is being constantly in that suspicious state and sort of minor low-key paranoia, which I can also understand. I actually went through this very early on in my life before I got into my current path of awakening. Well, currently I'm in ascension and mastery stage, right? I am no longer in that awakening or like sitting on the side of my bed, that type of a situation. I have been practicing for, I would say, pretty much a decade at this point, to some extent. I started reading the cards around, I guess, 2013. I faced this sort of paranoid state, and when I sort of realized that, okay, there's something really wrong about this society, I realized that before my sort of first spiritual awakening, because this is when I was kind of just studying. I was kind of just wanting to know, is this God thing real? This was when I was like maybe 14, so that was like 15 years ago. And so whenever that was going on, before that I was in this very paranoid state. I really didn't I didn't trust people, I didn't trust society, I didn't trust anything. I didn't even trust God, because I was sort of convinced that God had abandoned me. Like, I was kind of convinced that that is what was going on, and that the reason that I was going through all of this shit and why I had to deal with all kinds of traumatic events, and why I had to why I was so depressed, why I hated myself, I and why was I put in this society that was like so against people that are different. I believed that was because God had abandoned me. Basically, that was kind of my train of thought back then. But these days, and even, I started the exploration. I did ultimately get that belief in God again, and then at some point, like, it has come back because it's related to a lot of traumas. But I'm getting a lot better with this. Like, I don't feel like I am in that state anymore, and I don't really have this thing come up a whole lot. So I'm pretty sure I've healed this. Quite quickly I realized that, okay, that probably is not the way to, approach life. In this constant suspicion and paranoia and being on the edge and kind of being overly cautious, not having the guts to make any kind of moves whatsoever because you're just so suspicious about everything, and you're so like a skeptic and almost cynical. Instead, I go for courage and I go for taking risks, not stupid risks, but taking risks that are most likely worth it, and that actually have the capacity to support me, and that actually have the capacity to lead to growth. But that's what tends to come with the conspiracy. It's like we get so immersed in this state of suspicion that basically we're radiating that into the outside world, and we're not able to really trust anything at all. That isn't a very high vibrational state to be in, and that needs to be cleared. What's the antidote to suspicion? Is trust and faith. And when we take those trustful, faithful leaps forward, that is when we are speaking to the universe, speaking to our desires, that hey, it's okay. It is okay for us to reach for this. And the universe will read that as a lot more effortless and easeful movement compared to something like being constantly suspicious, right? If you're constantly suspicious of people, you're not gonna make any friends. Honestly, you're not gonna make any process in your social, life. If you're not giving people a chance, how can they give a chance to you? So you do have to remember that, balance, that give and take in this. What you put out to the universe is what you shall receive. And of course, sometimes unfair things happen. When you receive something you definitely didn't put out. But in that case, we're gonna have to make that decision. Are we gonna be like that person, or are we gonna take the higher road and actually act as love in human suit, right? And so that is something that I would say there is to really, yes, focus on those higher realities, focus on trust, focus on, believing in ourselves and in our paths, believing and being open. Because the thing about the conspiracies is that it can also close your field off to, like I said, to all of these opportunities and all things, really. It can really close us off in a way. But it can also, be a big distraction from what's going on within, right? Because it often does want to take our attention away into something else. Usually it is something external, usually it's some, maybe a group of beings that these conspiracy theorists want to, have as their sort of next target to put negative intentions towards, or to be kind of watching them or something. Really, I haven't looked at a conspiracy theory in a long time, so I'm not really sure what they do these days, but I do remember there was one that was kind of looking at a certain politician as a savior. And again, if they are sort of promoting saviors, both in their quotations, if they're promoting saviors, that means they're trying to distract you from you saving yourself. And they're trying to distract you from your own process. They're trying to propose that somebody has more power than you and that they're gonna just rescue you and save you, whatever the hell. If there is a savior involved, that is not sovereignty, that is not you in your power. Take your power back, babe. You know, for real. And I approach the same thing as in with like some aliens coming and saving the day. I honestly, sure, they can perform miracles, but we have to be willing to work with them. We have to be the ones to make contact with them. But it's not about us waiting for the aliens to pick us up and, you know, just come in their spaceship in the physical. We can work on being able to see that for ourselves, but we cannot count on this like a big ass event to happen, because we're just gonna waste our entire lives waiting for it, most likely. But what I would recommend instead, maybe watch this video that I created about how to make contact with ETs. Maybe watch that and then do some work and see where you get. Because I have been able to actually see pretty physical aliens, like very close to, you know, physicalized UFOs. Like I was seeing very detailed stuff last summer, and that's something that, you know, hasn't happened in a long time. I do remember when I saw that Pleiadian orb in the sky, that was my first UFO experience. That was pretty damn physical. But like last summer, that was really, like there was some really wild, you know, UFO activities right here. And so just do your work, because the aliens, the UFOs, the star beings, they are there always for you. You don't have to wait. You also don't have to wait for the Earth to go to 5th dimension if you go to the 5th dimension yourself. If you raise your baseline frequency little by little, clear all of those dense energies from yourself, clear those traumas, those sort of knots that get into your energy system. Clear those things out. Clear all the damage and conditioning that was done onto you, or that you maybe created yourself in your process, which is not something that we judge, right? We just acknowledge that, okay, this kind of did this to myself in this process, maybe in order to protect myself from something. Do that work, because that is what's going to take us into the next level in our process, in our ascension. Remember that that is always the key. And if there's anything that is trying to take you away too much, to the external, too much outside of yourself, and remember again, there's a minor balance there, because we do have to, of course, remember that sometimes there are other people involved and our actions do affect others. But I do want to kind of remind people that our inner world is the one that we can most affect, and what we have created is what we have most power over, of course, and we don't want to have power over others anyway. Okay, that's the old paradigm. But when it comes to, you know, just that creating our own sort of world, that is where we are sovereign. We have the power, and we can even change our circumstances when that's what we focus on. I have done it, so you can too. I trust that. That's what I wanted to say. That's just my 2 cents. That's just my perspective, well, not just my vision, but I would say my solution to the conspiracy problem. Most conspiracy theories are problems, not solutions. That's my spiel on the conspiracy obsession, especially in the Starseed community, in the alien, ET, UFO community. To some extent it is in different, you know, spiritual communities. A New Age, you know, tends to also fall into the conspiracy trap a little bit. So I just wanted to make sure I kind of discuss it and, you know, offered you something to chew on, so that you can keep evolving and you can create the best outcomes for yourself, okay? I hope this helps, and I will see you again soon. Stay cute, stay beautiful, stay inspiring, stay awesome.